We're officially halfway through 2026, which means it is time once again for the mid-year book tag. And I believe this is my third or fourth year doing this video on my channel. I'll go ahead and have the previous years linked down below in the description, as well as the questions to the tag. I did switch it up a little bit this year, but I always think it's fun whenever you guys answer the questions in the comments down below. We can chat about all of your mid-year thoughts about the books that you've read so far this year too. And before I go ahead and get on into answering the questions, if you're new here, hi, my name is Katie. I love talking about books on my channel, and if you're not new here, welcome back. It's nice to see you once again. For this year's mid-year book tag, I have 19 questions that I am going to be answering. Some have several answers, some just have one, and I did try my best not to repeat too many books or authors or characters so things didn't get too redundant, but also at the same time, you're probably gonna tell what books I've really been liking if they've been used for more than one question. And we're gonna start out this video like I do with all my other monthly wrap-ups with my statistics so far midway through the year. I have currently read 45 books so far this year, and my goal is 100. So as of right now, I'm about 5 books behind. I do feel okay with that as of right now. I do need to put a little bit of a pep in my step for the rest of the year though. But reading goals are just meant to be fun, and I'm not trying to stress too much about it. I also wanted to talk about my genre breakdown. I will have all of that on screen, as well as my average rating and the amount of pages that I have read so far this year. I love statistics. I always think it's really interesting to look at, especially over such a wide time frame. And I'm gonna go ahead and start answering the questions off my laptop, so if you see me looking down, that's why. The first question is the best book I've read so far in 2026, and that has to be The Correspondent by Virginia Evans. Ever since I read this in the month of May, I have not shut up about it, mainly because it put me in the worst book slump I have ever experienced, and I am still crawling my way out of it. The Correspondent is following our main character Sybil, and she writes letters to make sense of her life. She writes letters to people she knows, her friends, her family, but she also writes letters to authors. She writes letters to celebrities. And throughout the book, she ends up writing an ongoing letter to somebody that you figure out why she's writing and who she's writing to later, which adds like a little bit of a more mysterious element into it, where you're wanting to know more about who she's writing to and why. I was really nervous going into this book because it is just letters. Like, you're just reading letters. There's no prose or dialogue technically, and you do also get to read other letters that Sybil has been sent. So you get to know so much about our characters just with such little time spent with them, and just by the recollection of things that have happened in all of their lives. And I was really nervous that I would be hard to connect with the characters because of that, but oh my gosh, because letters are so personal, it's such a genius way to help you connect with characters. This story was just so human. There were so many real and deep things that Sybil was going through and her friends and family were going through, and it was just such a heartbreaking but such a beautifully human story, and those are some of my favorite books. So it wasn't very surprising that I was going to absolutely love this one. I'm literally tearing up just thinking about it right now. The second I finished it, I knew it was probably going to be my favorite book of the year, and I'm honestly going to be surprised if a book ends up topping it by the end of the year, because that's how good this one was. Moving on to question number 2, the best sequel you've read so far in 2026. First off, we have Play Along by Liz Tom Ford. This is the 4th book in the Windy City series. I enjoyed the first 2 books in the Windy City series, don't get me wrong. They were good, but I feel like the 3rd and the 5th were like another level up, and then you get the 4th one, Play Along, with Isaiah and Kennedy. Oh my gosh. If all of those books were shooting for the stars, Play Along would end up in a different galaxy. That's how good it is. It's so fast-paced. It's so fun, but it also has those real moments with Kennedy and Isaiah, and I feel like it is the perfect spicier sports romance formula for me as a reader, where you still get to connect very deeply with these characters, but then you're also just having so much fun. I love how Isaiah is just always trying to put a smile on everybody else's face. He cares so much about the people that he loves. He's just so goofy and lighthearted, but then you also get to figure out why he is that way and how much a lot of the things in his life have affected him in order to want to care for other people so much. And Kennedy is just such a perfect match for Isaiah. I really enjoyed her character too, with the way that she is just such a strong and hardworking, determined woman. I also think it being the 4th book in the interconnected series helps too, because of the fact that I really did enjoy a lot of the other characters. So seeing them in this book made me smile. I just loved the found family in here. And it was just such a good way to continue the series. That book is so fun. Like, literally thinking about it right now, I cannot wipe the smile off my face. And then we have Emma M. Lion. I'm gonna say number 6 specifically. I did just finish number 7 and it was really good. I feel like the rest of the series is just 5 stars all around, but number 6, the way it left off and then going into number 7, I guess. Again, I just had an absolute smile on my face the whole time because of the ending and the way that things transpire with the storyline. The subplot of romance in here and what was going on with that just made me so giddy, and I was loving every minute of it. This is a historical fiction series set in the Victorian era in London, and you're following our main character Emma M. Lyon through what she ends up writing in her journal that day. She gets up to the most outlandish things. She's a feminist icon for her time. She has this little found family friend group with 3 other guys in the town, and I have just been absolutely loving this series. I know I haven't shut up about it, so I think I might go ahead and shut up about it right now as much as I can, but I loved it. I love the storyline. It is so fun, and I feel like there is just something so whimsical and witty about Emma that I strive to achieve that kind of aura she has. I just love her as a main character. This is a new question that I added this year. We have solid 4-star favorites because I wasn't going to mention them in any other question, and I feel like they should still be mentioned because they're still great books. They just weren't 5-star reads. The first one is Best Offer Wins by Marissa Cashino. This was so fun. You guys know I get scared incredibly easily, and I don't know if I would specifically classify this as a mystery. I feel like it's more thrilling, but it's not really scary. It's not really a thriller. In all honesty, I feel like it's more suspenseful fiction than anything, but anyways, you're following your main character, Margot, and she is going crazy. She is living in this tiny apartment with her husband. They've been trying to get pregnant for so long, and they've also been trying to buy a house for a super long time. Margot's dream house ends up coming on the market, and this has happened to her many times before where she's wanted a house so bad and she doesn't get it. So she is willing to do anything, and I mean anything, to get this house this time. And she ends up going, you know, a little crazy. There were a few moments where I felt very uncomfortable with the things that she was doing. Like, I was like, oh, Margot, what are we doing? Don't do that. Like, who in their right mind would do or say these things? And yet she did because she just wanted that house. And honestly, with the way that the house was explained and the way the house market is today, who can blame her? Low key. It seemed like a beautiful house. And also, I feel like I've mentioned this in videos before, but I feel like the ultimate level of cringe factor that breaks my cringe scale is the Scott's Tots episode of The Office. And this at times gave me those vibes because of how much I was actually cringing at the things that she was doing. It was so incredibly fast-paced and fun and a perfect book slump repellent. And then another one of my 4-star favorites is actually called The Favorites by Lane Fargo. This is following our main character, Katarina Shaw. She is a very well-renowned ice dancer, and she's partnered with Heath Rocha. Now, they have a past, they have a history, they're in love, and they got into ice dancing whenever they were quite young, and then eventually they try and make a comeback, and all the while they're in love with each other. I don't always love a toxic love story, but this one was good and had me on the edge of my seat because of all the dramatic things going on. They eventually go to the Olympics. I always find the Olympics so fascinating, and I read this during the time of the Winter Olympics, which I feel like added to the atmospheric nature of me reading the book in general. And I was watching a lot of ice dancing during that time, and oh my gosh, it looks so incredibly hard. And I was just imagining the characters doing all these things even more. It made it a whole experience. Again, the storyline, super fast-paced, super fun, very dramatic, but it also felt realistic at times too. And I really love books where you get to see behind the scenes of things that you're interested in. And again, I'm interested in the Olympics and the behind the scenes of athletes and sports. And I don't know, this book just was wildly entertaining from start to finish. And the audiobook was also fantastic. Question 4 is new releases you haven't read yet but want to. Number 1 is Our Perfect Storm. I'm actually realizing now all of these are actually newer summer releases. So we have Our Perfect Storm by Carly Fortune. I really want to read that. I'm going to the beach in Michigan. Well, hopefully I'm going to the beach. It might rain while I'm there, but I'm leaving for Michigan actually tomorrow when I'm filming this. So I'm really excited to read that on the beach. I feel like Carly Fortune's books just yearn to be read by a body of water. So I'm going to do right by it and read that book by Lake Michigan. We also have have two other books. I haven't bought these yet, but I would really love to read them sometime soon. We have The Someday Garden by Ashley Poston and Dolly All the Time by Annabelle Monaghan. I haven't heard too many things about either of these because they just recently came out. Since Our Perfect Storm came out less recently, it's had a little bit more time to circulate around. So I've seen a few reviews here and there. I feel like it's going to be one that I enjoy. I don't have like the highest hopes for it. I don't know if it's going to surpass One Golden Summer and how that one made me feel. But I'm not going to lie, my hopes are kind of high for Dolly All the Time and The Someday Garden. They just sound super fun, and I really like the writing of both Ashley Poston. I really like both Ashley Poston and Annabelle Monaghan's writing. I just feel like in the past, whenever I've had issues with their books, it's been specifically with the storytelling. So I have my fingers crossed that I enjoy. Question number 5 is my biggest surprise so far this year. And I feel like every year I take this in a different way. It can be maybe a book that I thought I was going to enjoy more than I did, or maybe a book that absolutely shocked me and I didn't think I was going to enjoy, or maybe it's a debut. There are a lot of different ways that I can answer this question, and this year it's a little bit different, like it always is. Like I already said, we have Half His Age by Jeanette McCurdy. This book, I have never felt so conflicted on my feelings for a book. I think I rated it like 2.5 stars or something like that. And yet I still don't even know if I should have rated it at this point, but just because of the fact that this book was insane. The writing, I really enjoyed. Jeanette McCurdy has the memoir that she wrote, I'm Glad My Mom Died, but this is her first novel, and I feel like her writing was absolutely superb. She talked about in an interview one time where whenever authors use very flowery writing, they use a lot of big words, there was a lot of descriptions. She just wants to put her hand on their shoulder and be like, you did enough, which I think is absolutely hilarious. And I think about that every time I read a book that's a little bit more dense with the writing style. Like, we're getting out of flowery and beautiful and we're just like, it's dense. It feels like I'm working to get through that book. So I definitely enjoyed her writing style. Very straightforward, very succinct, to the point. I feel like there were a lot of good themes in here, especially as a woman reading this, because we're following our main character. She's in high school and she basically ends up falling in love with her teacher and they end up having an affair. There were just some things that happened in this book that I wasn't really expecting. And it was very real and raw in a very jarring way, but things also left me feeling disturbed, and I'm sure that was the point. But that doesn't mean that I enjoyed my reading experience, if you know what I mean. And you see, you see how this conflicts, all the feelings are conflicting. So that's why this is my biggest surprise. I was honestly really excited to read this and to listen to it because she did narrate the audiobook. But at the end of the day, I'm still confused on that one. I would be interested to re-listen to it sometime in the next few years and see if I have any other thoughts after growing up a little bit, because I feel like my opinions on books sometimes do change the older that I get. So who knows? I might reread that one someday and see if I can find any more feelings on it. Question number 6 is the biggest letdown. I actually have 3 for these. And each of these books and the reason why I chose them are a little bit different. First off, we have the conclusion to the Beartown trilogy, the second and third books, Us Against You and The Winners by Frederick Bachman. I loved Beartown. I feel like I've talked about this so much on my channel since I read it in December, but it was absolutely fantastic. I feel like it was perfectly polished. It was done so well. I cared so much about all the characters and everything that they were going through, and I feel like it was wrapped up in a great way. So I was really nervous going into the second book, Us Against You, because of that fact, and my nervousness about that did not sway. It stayed. And there's only so much you can do with a literary fiction story, in my opinion, and it felt like he wasn't planning to write more books, so it was really hard to see where the story was going to go. And I feel like there were a lot of things that just felt out of character for these characters that I got to know so well in Beartown, and I still feel really confused and conflicted on my feelings on this, because there were big things happening in these characters' lives, very sad, tragic, or very happy things, and I felt those emotions with them because I'm so connected to these characters. But at the same time, there were so many other things revolving around the story that I was like, okay. I don't know. It just didn't really feel necessary to me, in all honesty. I feel like a lot of the times whenever I have conflicting feelings on books, as you're probably going to realize as I keep talking about them, it's hard sometimes for me to fully wrap my head around how exactly I'm feeling about it, because there's so many different factors that go into a book. The writing, the storytelling, the characters, your connection to everything, and I feel like it just makes me very confused at times, and I end up spiraling. So let's keep talking about books that I feel that way about, I guess. Next, we have The Exiles by Jessica Joyce. This this was one that I just had way higher expectations for. I feel like maybe Jessica Joyce's books just aren't for me personally, and that's okay. But when I see other people absolutely rave about a book, I get so excited about it, and I feel like I just kind of let myself down on this one, knowing that I didn't absolutely love her debut, You with a View. I feel like her writing in the second one definitely clicked a little bit more in my brain, but once we got to a certain point in this book, I feel like the tension between Eli and Georgia, our couple, just dissipated. I felt like there were just interesting, weird plot things, and I feel like whenever you're surrounding a book around a wedding, there are so many big wedding moments that you can include, and I was just disappointed that those things weren't in there. And just overall, I just didn't love this as much as I thought I was going to. And then finally, we have The Players Club by Rachel Mills. This was an advanced reader copy that I ended up getting through NetGalley, and I was really excited for this one. I thought there was going to be magical realism, so I think that if I would have gone in with a different expectation, maybe my thoughts on this would be a little bit different. Who knows? In this book, you're following our main character. Can't even remember her name because that's how much I did not enjoy this book. And she does this thing called life playing, where she basically becomes a totally different person and pursues their life as if she is them. And then after she finishes the life play of doing that specific thing as that person, she just transforms back into herself. And by transforms, I mean she like changes outfits. I don't know. It sounds like it should be magical realism to me, especially with certain extents as to what these women in the group that she was life playing with were willing to do for a life play. It just felt outlandish at times, and I was just expecting more. I was wanting more. This book also, just without the no magical realism thing, felt very hard to connect to because our main character was very bland and boring, and I also feel like a lot of the side characters weren't developed well, and there was a lot of info dumping and feelings dumping and just a lot of dumping at the end of the book, and I was like, okay. Storyline wise, things just didn't really seem to work out, and I just had really high hopes for this one. Again, it seemed like something fun and interesting and a debut new author I could enjoy, but alas, I did not. And you know what? That's okay, because question number 7 is my favorite author currently, or like a new to me favorite author. And I'm going to be answering this as a new favorite author, and that is Lily King, the writer of Heart the Lover that I read earlier this year, which was originally my favorite book of the year before I had read The Correspondent. I feel like what I loved so much about Lily King's writing was similar to Jeanette McCurdy. I feel like she was just so succinct, to the point, but then she also left quite a few things up for interpretation. There were a lot of things with her storytelling that just hit me so hard in the chest and made it so easy to connect with the characters. I feel like the storyline in general, she beautifully wove that together, and it was to the point where I enjoyed her writing so much that I just cannot wait to read the rest of her books. I feel like for me to find an author that I absolutely love, it's just one of the greatest feelings as a reader, and I just remember feeling so much from her writing, and obviously that is an author's job, is to feel so much about words on paper that you have a reaction to it and you connect to it. So Heart the Lover has definitely made Lily King a new favorite author of mine. Question number 8 are my newest favorite characters so far this year, and I only have 2 characters, and they're both from the M&M Lion series. We have Jack. He is so absolutely ridiculous. He gets up to these schemes and he always ropes Emma into them, and it is so funny to see them play out. I feel like there's normally at least one in every single book, and I feel like recently we've learned a little bit more about Jack and why he does these things, and he does have this sadder, more real side to him, which I enjoyed getting to know too, but I just love him and Emma together, and I feel like there's just such a sense of adventure. He's such a flirt, and him and Emma together just make me laugh so much. And then we also have Islington. I'm not 100% sure how to pronounce that because I feel like I hear it a billion different ways, but he kind of has this rapport and interaction with Emma to where they have such good banter. It's kind of like brother-sister at this point in the series, even though I was kind of hoping for more at the beginning. Who knows what can happen though? I just love their witty banter together. He has these little quips and ways of talking that I enjoy too. He kind of has this funny and rebellious aura to him, but not as much as Jack. It's kind of like cocky, you know what I mean? I feel like a lot of my favorite male characters do tend to be cocky, but it's also like cocky confident. It's not just cocky, if you know what I mean. And I just really enjoy all the characters in that series, but I'm really enjoying them specifically, and of course Emma, but I feel like I've blabbed so much about her. I think you can expect that she's one of my favorite characters. Number 9 is a book that made me cry, basically my biggest cry of the year so far. I did cry a lot to The Correspondent by Virginia Evans, so that is an honorable mention, but as that has already been mentioned so far in this video, I gotta talk about The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Oh my gosh, that end of that book had me sobbing like a baby. I think that was probably one of the most painful books I've ever read in my entire life. It's a book about World War II. It's following these two sisters, and you get to see how their lives are affected by it and the different things that they go through during the war. And wow, it was just so deeply heartbreaking on so many levels. Kristen Hanna, she knows how to write and she knows how to make me feel and connect to characters. And I definitely did during that book. And not just the ending of that book was sad, but there were so many other moments too where I just felt so much. And I cannot explain how important it is to read books like that. I think there's so much we can learn about history from historical fiction books that are deeply important because you get the chance to connect with people's stories of what was going on during wartime, specifically firsthand from people who were going through it. And I feel like that is important because a lot of the times whenever you're just learning about the things that happened, you're just being told, and being able to connect feelings to the people that were going through it, I feel like adds another layer of how important just learning from history is. So I cannot express how much that book affected me. I'm surprised I'm not sobbing in a ball on the floor right now just thinking about it, but I've only teared up one time so far in this video. I'm kind of proud of that. On the other side of the coin, we have question number 10, which is a book that made me happy, and that is A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sengu Mandana. This book, there were definitely moments where my blood was boiling and I felt a little bit irritated and mad for the characters, but there were so many moments during this book that made me so happy. I had a smile on my face. I felt so hopeful. There were so many witty things going on, and it's just such a charming world that Sengu Mandana is able to create. I feel like the subplot of romance in here was very heartwarming and sweet, and I loved the found family. There is something so special about her books. I cannot wait until she comes out with her next book. I don't know when that is coming, but I'm gonna be at the bookstore buying it the day that it's out. That's how much I love her writing and the characters that she creates. And I feel like she's one of those authors where after I finish one of her books, I just feel so hopeful and happy, and I just feel good. And sometimes you need a feel-good book, and she definitely is an author who creates a feel-good environment for me. Question number 11 is the most beautiful book that I've bought so far this year or received. I haven't read this one yet, but I really think that The Burning Side by Sarah DeMoff is so beautiful. I don't know, the sunset, I'm just a sucker for a sunset in real life and on book covers, I guess. I think this is so absolutely beautiful, and I think because of that, it makes me want to read it even more, so that's definitely a good thing. And I also think Into the Blue by Emma Brody that I read not last month, but the month before is also really pretty. I don't know what it is about it, but it just catches my eye. Like, it's not the most beautiful book that I've ever seen, but there is something special about it. When I look at that, I'm like, okay, what's inside that book? I want to read that book. And I feel like when it was circulating and I was hearing absolute rave reviews about it, it didn't hurt that the book looked like something that I would go and pick up at a bookstore without hearing rave reviews about it. Question number 12 is, what books do you want to reread this year? First off, we have the Heartstopper series by Alice Oseman, which I'm actually currently in the middle of rereading. I believe I have to reread volume 4 and 5 still at this point, and the whole reason for rereading the entire graphic novel series is because the 6th one is coming out in July, and that's just in a few days now because it's currently July 1st when I'm filming this, and I am absolutely stoked to read it when it comes out. I love this graphic novel series so much. They're just so heartwarming, and I feel like rereading them, I'm just getting those nostalgic first love feelings all over again. So I'm so excited to be able to finish the series finally, now that the last one's coming out, but also really sad that it's going to be over. And then I have a few more honorable mentions. I would love to do an Emily Henry reread of some sort sometime, maybe this summer. I reread Happy Place last year, and that is my favorite romance book of all time at this point. I just relate to it on so many levels, and I loved my reread experience when I did it last year. I read it in January, surprisingly enough, even though it's set during the summer, but it had all the amazing effects, and I felt so connected to it as much as I did the first time, if not even more, even though I read it during the winter time. But because I reread that one last year, and I know it affects me so much to where I'm going to be deeply sobbing at the end, I don't know if I want to reread that right at this moment. I'm thinking maybe either Funny Story or Beach Read as well, because I've never reread those, and I would love to go back to those because it's just been a while since I've read them, and I would be curious to see what I would think about them upon a reread. And then we also have The Love Hypothesis. I don't know if I'll get to this one. Maybe I'll listen to it on audio, but that was one of the first romance books that I read when I first started getting back into reading as an adult, to where I stayed up until like 3 a.m. to finish it. I was just so sucked in, and I just have so many nostalgic memories towards it, and the movie's coming out soon, and I'm really excited for the movie. There are so many great book to TV or movie adaptations coming out right now. They're so good, and coming out in the near future too, that I cannot wait for. So was kind of thinking about doing a reread of that one beforehand, but I also feel like I remember so much of that book. But as for now, those are all the rereads that are on my mind for the rest of the year. I feel like I'm not a huge rereader at this time in my life. I definitely do see the appeal of rereading favorite books. I love my favorite books and would love to go back to them eventually, but I feel like sometimes I need enough time away from them to really feel the full effects. But then I guess we also have the Happy Place incident where I read it at the beginning of last year and I had only given it like 2 years in between my reads, and I felt so much for that one. So I don't know. I want to find a better balance of trying to reread some of my favorite books every once in a while. Question number 13 is a book that you enjoyed with mixed reviews. I've got to say Yesteryear by Carol Claire Burke. This was such interesting commentary on influencers and content creation, as well as conservatism and social standings and the patriarchy and trad wives. I just found so much of it so enthralling, and I just had a great time reading it. It was a very fast-paced read for me. I do think that the ending was not what I was expecting and a little bit messy and maybe not the most realistic, but I still enjoyed the book as a whole. It was very entertaining to me from start to finish, and I really enjoyed the subject matter, and I hope more books end up coming out in the fiction genre that are like it eventually, because I feel like it kind of gave me the feeling that a mystery thriller can without it being scary at all. It was more of like that suspenseful feeling in a way, kind of like I got from Best Offer Wins by Marissa Kashino. I feel like the more unlikable the character, sometimes I think that I'm not going to enjoy the book, but something I've learned this year is I love a book with an unlikable character, which makes me think that I need to read Yellowface, which we'll talk about that here in a second. Question number 14 is series you want to finish before the end of the year. Number 1, we have the Lion series. I have 1 more volume left until I'm all cut up. I don't know when the 9th volume's coming out yet, but I've been putting off reading the rest of the series because I'm going to be really sad whenever I'm all cut up, just because I love this series so much. But at the same time, I want to make room for reading more series. The second one we have is the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan. I know you're probably like, Kitty, I know who that's by. What do you mean you haven't read that series? Yes, I'm 25 and I've never read the Percy Jackson series, but I'm currently reading the first one and I'm curious to see my thoughts on it whenever I finish it. It's middle grade, so it's pretty fast paced, and I'm about halfway through the first one now and I'm enjoying it so far. And then finally we have the Ember and the Ashes Quartet by Sabaa Tahir. I read the first one in December of last year and I enjoyed it, and I actually picked up the second one less than a month ago, but I've been in a book slump recently, so I didn't want to have me being in a book slump affect my thoughts on that series and the second book as a whole, so I put it away. I don't know when I'm going to pick up the series again, but I'm really excited to continue it eventually because I know a lot of people really enjoy it, and I've been wanting to get back into fantasy a little bit more. I feel like I haven't read as much fantasy as of late, but I still do really enjoy it as a genre, so I want to try and finish the series sometime this year. Question 15 is a 5-star prediction for the rest of the year. I have one at this point, and that is Good Joy, Bad Joy by Mickey Brammer. It's actually on my July TBR, which I'm very excited about. I've never read anything by Mickey Brammer, but the main character of this book is older. She's in her 80s, and the correspondent by Virginia Evans, our main character Sybil, was in her 70s. And there was just something so refreshing about reading from Sybil's perspective as an older protagonist. I feel like she just knew herself so well, and you could really feel that through Virginia Evans's writing. So I'm hoping that something similar happens with Good Joy, Bad Joy. I also have a feeling that Good Joy, Bad Joy is going to be a tearjerker considering the plot line of the story. Basically, Joy's best friend Hazel ends up coming down with a terminal illness, and she is determined to live out the rest of Hazel's life with her by doing things that make them feel young and happy and just living a joyful rest of their lives, even though Joy normally is a very type A by the book type of person, so she's kind of changing. And I feel like that's such a beautiful sentiment, is you can still change even at any age. I am very nervous to read this one just because of the subject matter. It kind of hits a little bit close to me, so I feel like I am gonna have quite a big reaction to this one, so we'll have to see. I don't know, but I am interested to see what I think of it. Question number 16 is my most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I actually have 2. Number 1, I've already mentioned, but Heartstopper 6 coming out on July 7th. I am so excited for this one and interested to see how Alice Oseman finishes everything off for Nick and Charlie. It also reminds me, now that I have Netflix again, I need to go back and continue watching the Heartstopper series, especially because the movie is going to be coming out too. So I'm excited to finish watching the series and the movie eventually. And then we also have The Knave and the Moon by Richard Gillig, which I believe is just going to be a duology with The Night and the Moth. I could be wrong. I do love a fantasy duology though, so I'm kind of manifesting that right now. It's called the Stonewater Kingdom series at this point, and the way that the first one left off, Oh my gosh, it was crazy. I love the gothic elements that she adds in with her writing. It was just so different, honestly. It reminds me a lot of V.E. Schwab's writing too, and I feel like it's one of the reasons why I really enjoyed the Shepherd's King duology by her, One Dark Window and Two Swiss Crowns too, because there's so many unique feelings that I get from her writing, so I'm really excited for that one. Question number 17 is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I feel like I've talked about this quite a few times, but I am trying to finish all the books that I have bought prior to 2026 sometime in the year of 2026, or I would like to unhaul them if I don't see myself reading them anytime in the future. And honestly, I've been doing a pretty decent-ish job at that so far this year. I don't know why my voice just got so high. Don't mind that. But the two books that are the biggest on my radar right now, where if I just took away my TBR and I got to start fresh, these two are at the very top of my list. Number one is Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. I know this is on my yearly TBR, but I've just been wanting to read this book for so long. I feel like I need to read it because I really want to read an R.F. Kuang book so I can read some of her other books, and I've heard that a lot of people say this is a good starting point for R.F. Kuang. I also feel like I'm more versed in the literary fiction genre than I was originally whenever I wanted to read this quite a few years ago. So I feel like I'm going to be a little bit more receptive to this book than I would have been back then. I also feel like because there is an unlikable character in this book, like I mentioned earlier, and I've been realizing I do like unlikable main characters, I'm going to enjoy this one more than I think I will. And I'm just kind of tired of putting this one off at this point. So I want to read that, and then I would also love to read Writers and Lovers by Lily King. I know I already talked about Lily King in this video, but Writers and Lovers is the prequel to Heart the Lover, and I want to try and read them close-ish together. Now, I think I read Heart the Lover in February, so it's already been a few months, so I would love to read that sometime soon. I think that one is actually on my July TBR, so hopefully I'll get to it sometime in July, but I really loved Heart the Lover, like I already said in this video, and I'm really interested to see what I'll think of Writers and Lovers, because she wrote it, I think, in 2020. I could be wrong, but I know it was quite a few years ago, so I'm interested to see how her writing has differed or progressed, and just in general, what I'm going to think of my second Lily King book. Question number 18 is, do you think you'll reach your reading goal, and am I going to change it? Like I already said at the beginning of this video, I am 5 books behind of my 100 book reading goal. I think that I could definitely reach my 100 book reading goal. I hit it for the past 2 years. So in 2024 and 2025, I did end up reading 100 books. Last year, it was a little bit more of a struggle than it was in 2024. So I'm trying to stay as ahead of it as I can. Honestly, next year, I might make my reading goal a little bit less, because sometimes at the end of the year, I do feel myself stressing just a little bit about my reading goal, and reading's supposed to be fun. Like, I don't want to feel that way. And also sometimes it's nice to make room for a book slump, especially considering I'm kind of in one right now. Do I think that it is achievable? Yes, because I have done it before. I've proven to myself that I can do it. But I also like that it is a challenge, because yes, it is a reading challenge, not just a reading goal. So I'm still going to try and hit it, but I'm also going to be realistic at the end of the year with myself. And I don't really want to do the reading like 10 novellas in a row in order to reach my reading goal. I just feel like it's not worth it at that point. And I want to focus more on quality over quantity with reading in general. And that kind of goes on into my final question. Question number 19 is, do I have any new goals for the rest of the year? I feel like in general, what being in the worst book slump I've ever experienced so far in my life has taught me is that just not to put too much pressure on reading. Reading is meant to be fun. It's meant to be enjoyed. And you know what? Sometimes there's going to be moments in life where I don't have as much time for reading, or maybe I just don't want to read as much. And that is a-okay, because my zest and love for reading will hopefully come back someday. Please tell me it'll come back. I am just joking there, but there's just gonna be times in life where things ebb and flow. And again, that is okay. So just being a little bit more chill and relaxed about reading in general is definitely a big new goal of mine for the rest of the year. I want to keep that in mind. But my other goals that I've made so far this year that are in my reading journal are finish 75 booked, which I actually did already do. So why am I doing this with my microphone hand? Pat on my back for that one. That had way less effect because of the fact that I did it awkwardly the first time. Anyways, finish every book on my TBR before 2026, like we already talked about. Then I also had read from 10 new authors, which I don't know if I've already done that or not. Editing Katie, you tell me. You do the counting, because who knows if I had. I feel like I have read from quite a few new authors though so far this year. So I feel like it is an achievable goal for me. As for trying to finish every book on my TBR before 2026, I don't know if that's as achievable. That one, you know, Katie, you were a little ambitious at the beginning of the year. Do I think I'll reach that goal? We'll see, I guess. Who knows what can happen? I am going to at least attempt and try and be real with myself to see if I'm going to end up reading them someday or not. So that goal at this point is to be determined. But anyways, those are all 19 of the questions that I was going to answer in this video. Like I already said at the beginning of the video, I am tagging all of you to do the book tag. So if you would like, you can comment your answers to the questions down below in the comments, and we can chat about your answers in the comments together. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video though. If you enjoyed it, it would be super awesome and help out my channel a ton if you could like and subscribe. And if you watched until this far in the video, comment down below the calendar emoji so I know who the real ones are who watched until the very end of the video. And I think that's gonna be it from me today. I love you guys so much. Hope you're all having an amazing day. Hopefully you're feeling ready for the second half of the year that is to come. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video that will be coming very, very soon. Bye, you guys. Peace. Bye.